going on, guys? Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So I just posted a live to my entertainment show, GoPro Solo production page. Check it out. I'll link it here on this live. If you guys are not already following the page, GoPro Solo ENT. That's the production company I've been developing since 2015. Go ahead and check that out. On this page, though, in my circle of goals that I've created since I started being, really, really treated poorly in 2019, 2 weeks prior to Dylan's release, inmate number Y12173, IDOC Dylan Smith. 2 weeks prior to him coming home, I was jumped and stabbed by 3 women 11 times with screwdrivers. Since that time, the abuse has continued. I get a couple of weeks or maybe a month in between, but for the most part, I've been being robbed. So either I go to sleep and someone comes into my space, whether it's an Airbnb or wherever I am, they take something, whether it's makeup or clothing or money or food or whatever. It's been happening regularly since 2019. I still, to this day, am not in my own home with my children as I've been my entire life, from the birth of my 3 children through present day. And I still have not been provided a court date, nor responded to by law enforcement regarding any of the rapes, thefts, abuses taken against me. So there's extensive documentation, medical records, etc., and so forth to prove each and everything that I've said is the truth. My car was destroyed, my home was destroyed, and I've just been kind of throwing myself into, surviving. So if you've been along here watching for, longer than just since 2019, you guys know that I have 3 beautiful children who I love more than life itself. Viviana, 16, my daughter, Louis, my son, 14, and my youngest child, Alexis, 9 years old. From birth through November 24th, 2019, all 3 of my children lived with me primarily. I was the primary custodial parent in a joint custody situation. And that was decided by a court date. I won primary joint custody. Since November 24th, 2019, shortly after Dylan's release and the abuse began, a man attempted to break into our apartment at 2037 West Roscoe, and the police were called, and they asked the kids' fathers to come get them, and they have not allowed me to have the opportunity to reside with them again since then. Every time I get an apartment, they break in to show that it's not safe. I've gotten a house. They did the same thing. Xavier and I had a room that we were renting. They did the exact same thing, kicked us out for no reason, curated a big, huge issue. So it's been incredibly frustrating, heartbreaking, honestly. But in the meantime, I made a list of things that I wanted to work on or that I wanted to discuss, because if my life is, not where I want it to be, and I want other people to get involved and assist me in reaching these goals and receiving the justice that is, deserved in this situation, then I just feel like I need to continue to develop in all areas and understand things that affect the same people that I'm asking for help. So if I'm asking you to help me understand and fix what's going on with me, but I don't have any investment of time or energy into the things that cause others issues, that's not an even balance. So I don't know who's been watching since we were at Montclair when I was doing book club, and I was doing it on the books, the 4 agreements. I'm going to do another one on the untethered soul. I have so much, question about the things in that novel. I understand what Michael Singer is trying to say or saying, but I feel like there may also be hidden meaning. So I'm super excited to get a discussion group together for that. If you guys have not read the book, The Untethered Soul, please do so. Michael Singer is the author, and then, let's have a conversation about it. And I'll do another live. I'm not sure when it'll be. It's hard for me to schedule these things. I'll try to give you guys a heads up. But most of the time, if I make an announcement here that I'm going to go live, they don't allow me to. They block it. So I try to just do it spur of the moment. That's typically been the only way it's, allows me to log in, or go live, rather. But one of the goals for perspectives that I've been challenging from the norm of what we were taught, and in honor of Black History Month, it's the month is February in America. I don't know about the rest of the world. Forgive me for my ignorance, but in America we celebrate National Black History Month in the month of February. So we're in February now. I have this tattoo on my wrist. It says "Still I Rise." Maya Angelou is a civil rights activist, a Black civil rights activist, who wrote a poem called "Still I Rise." I posted it a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week. Check it out if you guys have time. Also, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, Maya Angelou. But I was writing something down. I was incredibly confused because I'm always thinking like, okay, it's Black History Month, but I'm dealing with the most. My life is in complete chaos. I miss my children. I'm crying a lot. I'm trying to understand what the fuck is going on. My jobs are being sabotaged. I'm being, abused physically, sexually, all this stuff. But I can't seem to find a way out. And education, learning, understanding various perspectives has only worked to assist me in finding the way up. So every time I put my own issues to the side and distract myself with knowledge, they say knowledge is power. So Black history is just one of many lists of things that I have been working on in these past 4 years. And I wrote this little narrative that I want to discuss with you guys, and I feel like it would be a pivotal move and very intelligent for our country, our youth, and the generations to follow. I think that out of all the Black history that exists, the most important part to understand is this. And I'll explain why I think this as well. I never knew this, and I know grown men with careers making six figures who don't know this. I promise you, it's not that they maybe couldn't figure it out logically. They have just never given their mind the time. They've never invested the energy or time into finding out. Okay, and I swear to God, you could think I'm joking. I'm not. This is not a joke. So I'm going to talk about it and then I'll defend it. When we're talking about the family system and how it affects, how it is affected, or how it has affected, or how it's been affected in specific areas of America that are affected by poverty, violence, etc., and so forth. And we all know, if you don't know, I'm about to tell you, a lot of African American people are subjected to those conditions because they started after the rest of us, generationally speaking, right? If someone's being held as a slave, how much of their time and energy can be spent investing in themselves? How much of their time and energy can be spent saving money? How much of their time and energy can be spent developing skill sets, learning hobbies, loving their family, going to church? Not much, right? So while the rest of us are developing and evolving, anyone being held as a slave, and since it's Black History Month, I'm referring, mostly, and the largest population, affected by this is African American people, Black America, but there were also immigrants and poor white people, so it's larger issue than race, but race, more Black Americans were affected than white Americans. More Black Americans were affected than immigrants. And they were held as slaves. So we know it happens to a lot of us. Immigrants can be affected, poor white people can be affected, but we know that it affected largely Black Americans historically, right? So you're released, the Emancipation Proclamation is signed, and all slaves are free, supposedly. They're set free, right? What do you do when you're coming from an oppressive situation where you were never allowed to learn or make your own money, and you're set free now? How do you earn an income? How do you teach your children? Where do you live? What do you do? So these are all problems that America didn't have solutions for. And the Black America, anyone, and listen to me, when I say poor white people, immigrants, you're Black America for the sake of this reference. You are just as enslaved, or we're just as enslaved as anyone else. Period. It's the truth. So when you free yourself from that oppression, and now you're free, how do you go about catching up to even be able to compete with, or work next to, or be a part of the same world as the people who have been evolving for hundreds of years while you were still a slave? How do you catch up, right? Hold on, you guys, I have to get my charger. So this is what I want to be to happen. This is, I think, an easy solution for helping people understand, because again, I saw this disturbing ass video. I just lost a piece of medication. I saw this disturbing ass video of this group of boys beating the fuck out of a little white girl, 8 or 9 years old, because supposedly she said a racial slur. I mean, it was terrible to watch. They were beating this little girl up. I mean, bad. Like 4 or 5 boys beating her. So do you think it's possible that she did say the racial slur? I do. You know, I don't know her. I don't know her family, but I know if you grow up in a household where the adults in that household, the role models in that household, don't understand racism, don't understand Black history, they could very easily say a racial slur that a young child would use, maybe even on accident, without even knowing, you know, the effects that it would have. Again, that would be on the parents. So what do we do for children who are living in households with ignorant parents who absolutely refuse to change their perspective or educate themselves? We incorporate Black education, Black history, and Black lessons into the curriculum. The first one and the most important one is systemic racism and how it contributed to the situation with where we are today. It's pertinent. It is something that needs to be taught, needs to be expressed. What I would say if I was teaching a class is something like this. Maybe they're high school kids, right? We're talking to. And again, I don't have a lesson plan written. I'm speaking this off the top of my head. So this is how it started. The legal system favors people with money, right? Is anyone arguing that? We all know that to be true. If you can afford a good lawyer, you're off. Right? You could get away with murder, literal murder, right? How much money does a slave or someone newly released from slavery have to invest in a legal defense? Nothing, right? So all of these slaves are released with no money, with nowhere to go, right? With no solutions, and then they're imprisoned for finding a way to survive. We have to teach this to our children, okay? So the family unit, for most people, consists of a mom and a dad, regardless of sex. You know, those are the roles, and then the children. Okay. What happened during this time was that while the rest of us were living in these family systems of stability with 2-parent households, newly released slaves either didn't have any family at all or created families and then fell prey to the criminal justice system. So if you think of a family of 4, right, and it's a Black mom, a Black dad, and some Black children, and then Black mom is working full-time, Black dad is working full-time, Black dad is targeted because he doesn't have enough money for a legal defense, and he's thrown in prison. What happens to Black mom? What happens to her? What happens to Black mom? Black mom has to now be a single income household, supporting all the children on her own. And that's not just support financially, that's support emotionally, mentally, financially, physically. That mom has to do the job of a 2-parent household on her own. Do you understand what that does to a household? Look at your own household now. Imagine one of the earners in the household is incarcerated. You are expected and pressured to spend a significant amount of money you probably do not have on this person's legal defense. And then ultimately they're taken away. And now you are left with all of the pieces of that fucking broken mess to pick up while still being a good parent to your children. Needless to say, many women can't handle it, or men. Many are okay and they make it through, but many can't, right? So what happens when you can't offer the support your child needs? What happens when you can't offer the financial support your child needs? What happens when you can't offer the physical support your child needs? You're at work, mom's at work working 2 jobs now because dad's gone. So now you've got 3 children raising themselves. If they're hungry, they go eat. There is no parental support, let alone love, or maybe there is as much as can be, but not as much as the rest of us have opportunity to provide. You're born into wealth, right? You have money. Your family has money. I don't. I'm saying you do. If there's a problem legally, it's not going to affect you, who can just go into the bank and pay a lawyer, the same way it's going to affect me, who has no money at all. Do you not get that? And when you make that a matter of race, and you take all of these black families and make them fatherless black families, what are you doing to the race? How is that helping them catch up from the deficit slavery created? It's not. It's not. So no, we can't turn back the hands of time and erase slavery. We cannot. But we can prevent it from the future, and we can teach our children that maybe the person who you see in class who maybe is wearing dirty clothes or maybe smells a little bad or who knows what, maybe that person shouldn't be called racial slurs. Maybe that person shouldn't be picked on and made fun of. Maybe there's a much larger reason that person doesn't have or doesn't understand, and maybe by educating them, we can prevent school shootings. We can prevent bullying. We can prevent all of these violent situations that create further deficit and a further life of lack. By preventing a life of lack, we're offering a life of abundance. I'm going to say that again. By preventing a life of lack, we're offering a life of abundance. We have enough. We all have enough. So back to the lesson plan, if we teach these children what actually happened systemically, that people were incarcerated when they didn't deserve to be, that people were wrongly convicted just because they couldn't afford a legal defense, and that it mostly and mainly impacted poor Americans, black Americans, that it separated families, that it caused people who otherwise naturally have good values and morals and ethics and standards for life to live outside of their normal reference for living only to survive. We can't incarcerate people for not dying. Why would we want to? So if we know that this took place historically, and it affects more things, than just poverty. It affects a lot of things. Family units, queer, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, all of these things. What?
The new slavery is rich or
right, social division. Social divisions, exactly. When you take a family that operates with a mother and father and children and remove one of the parental units, the family is coming from a place of lack. They have to make up for the support that the father provided. So now, again, you've got all this weight on mom's shoulders. The kids are looking at mom. They love mom, and dad. But they're feeling resentful and angry towards dad. They don't understand this is not dad's fault. They don't understand dad was just a fucking, scapegoat. They don't understand that. And they start despising their father. Wrongfully. Their father probably loves them very much, but that's not what they're being taught. Not taught by the words coming out of the mouth, taught by what they're seeing happening in the world. Do you understand? At the end of the day, anytime there is such a phenomenal impact on our society as a whole, as the one that has taken place, mass incarcerations against black men and women, but mostly men, huge demographics of people living below the poverty line, huge demographics of people living in tent cities, there's a problem. And problems, as I always say, are opportunities for solutions. So when we teach our children that black people and poor people didn't get to where they were because of the stereotypical scapegoat excuse, they're lazy. They're lazy. They don't want it bad enough. Okay, bitch, who fucking woke up this morning to $5 million in the bank because daddy left it to you? That's nice that you have that opinion. Fuck. I'm tired of those labels. Lazy, this, and then it's always a motherfucker who never had to work for shit. Or some middle class people just have that mindset. I've met a couple like that. But typically it's not that way, and you and I both know that. It's typically not that way. If we can get this curriculum in grammar school, if we can identify the deficits that were created, whether intentional or not, by the problems with the criminal justice system specifically and the mass incarceration issue, if we can teach that, if we can work that into our curriculum, we can prevent that from taking place in the future. Until we find a way to be open and honest with our youth, with the generations that come after mine, after yours, after his, after hers, the problems will repeat themselves. Anyways, happy Black History Month. For anyone who didn't know that February is Black History Month, take a fucking second. Read one article. You don't have to become Martin Luther King. Just educate yourselves. Have a meaningful conversation. There's a lot to talk about on that subject. I didn't write this out. Like I said, this is a spur of the moment. Boom, go live. Have some conversation. Keep the page going. But there's a lot more, to talk about with reference to homosexuality and, abuse in the prison system and lack of love, lack of sex, lack of money, lack of food. All of these things, they blend together. All of these things, they're causal to each other. So again, when you have a man in prison for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, is it right to expect that man to never feel loved again? To never feel supported or wanted? We're degrading and dehumanizing our population. And then we're sitting around feeling appalled when they lash out. Love wins every time. Every time. All right. I love you guys. I hope everyone has a great day. Like I said, there's a lot more we can discuss with the subject. My DM is open if you want to talk about it. Right here, go to the GoPro Solo Entertainment. If you want to collab, if you want to discuss about things like this, it'll be this account right here, the Coco Chanel. Contribute something. Let's continue to move forward with life and our goals individually and collectively. Let's make use of this time that we're here. Let's have fun. Let's live in abundance. Let's prosper. One of us winning doesn't mean anyone needs to lose. We can all win.